This is a Spirit of Truth Radio Network original program.
Throughout the history of the Catholic Church, artists have contributed in telling the gospel story, whether it be through the works of writing, song, paintings, sculpture, and even the stained glass windows that adorn our churches. But my guest today tells his story in a much more dramatic way. Exiting stage right to join me along the way is the founder and president of St. Luke Productions, Leonardo Defilippis. Leonardo, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, David.
Hey, I just wanted to start by saying that I've gotten the handshake with you out of the way. I first met you when you were doing a show here in Connecticut, Manchester, Connecticut, at East Catholic High School. And it was brought Father Edna Dalney.
That's right.
Who worked so hard to do that. So I definitely want to talk later on maybe about how we bring you back to Connecticut and how, other parishes or Catholic organizations can get you to come and perform. Even though we're in the middle of this COVID climate, I want to make that known too. But let's first start out. You were a Shakespearean trained actor, correct?
Yes, I mean, my first love when I first started acting was in the classics. I was really drawn to Shakespeare. And so I, by God's providence, I started getting jobs in Shakespearean festivals. The ones that might be more well known would be the Old Globe Theater, the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, Colorado Shakespeare Festival. They used to, back in Connecticut area, they used to have Stafford, isn't it? They have the Shakespearean Festival there on a little smaller scale, and I don't think it's doing it anymore. But we would just do things like that, and I was really drawn to the classics like Shakespeare, and that helped me. I think particularly, not only did we not have microphones or anything, we had to project and on these giant stages, but it taught me a lot about language and articulation and projection, and just the beauty of language.
I remember the experience that I had with you when you were playing Vianney here in Connecticut. Sound was definitely not a problem. I mean, you projected very well. That's how you came to become an actor, was through that love, that passion.
That's right.
Where did the switch get flipped, and where did you become? How would you describe yourself?
Well, I think I went through, the acting world, the Hollywood world, which I touched into too. That the movie industry. I mean, there's so many beautiful works of art to do, right? And so many idealistic projects. But sometimes obviously the moral climate can be challenging, shall we say. And we see that just looking at the magazine in the supermarket or whatever. There's those dilemmas that any Christian might have. Now, I wasn't always living the Christian faith at that time. My goal or the thing I was pursuing was art, career, to try to make it as an actor, to try to do the best works I could do at that time. And so religion wasn't as important. And I think that's because in that environment, God or religion is kind of disconnected. It's not thought about. And if you were a Catholic, Christian, or whatever, a lot of times you put that in the back seat and you're with all the other peer pressure of that time. And that's still true today. People can't really be who they really are or say what they really believe. So I was kind of caught just like anyone else. And then eventually I had an awakening. I had an epiphany. I had a quote unquote reconversion that said, I should look at my life and re-examine it. And so I kind of had a point where I, came back to the faith, started slowly, anybody coming back to the faith, the hardest thing to do is, of course, go to confession for reconciliation. All the other stuff is much easier.
Amen.
Amen. So I had to humble myself and go that. So once that was done and I opened the door, then I was able to start considering, what do I do now? What kind of acting do I do? How do I? So I changed my lifestyle in the theater world, and started to become a person who was more sympathetic to people, encouraging to people, trying to be a witness as I could in a world where there was a lot of confusion and hurt,
Sure.
a lot of woundedness. And so
Sure.
it was its own quote unquote apostolate, really.
Mm-hmm. And that was about, well, I know that I just read an article that St. Luke Productions is 40 years old.
Yeah.
So
that means I'm 40 years old.
Right.
No, I started this really young. No, it's amazing. The journey from Shakespeare, which I probably did 5 or 6 years, to starting this, which started in 1980 with the Gospel of Luke, which is why we're called St. Luke Productions, because of that first gospel. It was just the undertaking of taking on a one-person show on the gospel, which had been popularized back in the 1970s by Sir Alec McCowan, who is a very famous English actor. And he came over, he did it in England, and he did it different. I think he did it off-Broadway, actually kind of a recitation or a true monologue of the entire gospel. But he was in a sports coat and everything. Well, I took a more Shakespearean approach in the sense that I had costumes and lights, and then I decided, well, let's add music to this whole thing. And I've always had more music than any theatrical piece would normally have in terms of the spoken word, as you saw in one of my shows.
Yes, I did. It was very well. And which is going to bring me to another point. I'm probably skipping ahead, but Tolton. I just watched as part of my show prep, I just watched the trailer for that. And it seems to me that there is a lot of music involved with that. And it's very brave at this time, by the way. May I say thank you so much for stepping up and creating such a something that we need at this time in our country's history.
Yes, I've been very blessed. All the saints we've done, all the gospels. How shall I say? They're timely, they're relevant, they're or shall I say timeless. So a show, the show that we did 40 years ago is as relevant today and as powerful. So the one with Father Tolton, for those your listeners don't even know who he is, he's the first Black priest in the history of the United States, and he's up for canonization. So he's very well unknown, I mean, in the Catholic circles, of course, but even beyond that, not very well known at all in America. And he's probably one of the most important African American figures in the history of the United States, and definitely in the history of the American Catholic Church. So, and he's up for canonization, and he may be the first native-born man who is a priest who becomes canonized. So in the America, I know we have Fulton Sheen and these other ones are all trying.
Father McGivney.
Father McGivney is another one. So that could, we'll see what happens. But in other words, it's not a race or who comes first. But the point is, it's recognizable, and it's definitely dealing with what's happening today in terms of we see the strife, the brokenness, and what's happened from the, what we've seen with the riots and everything like this. This is a man of incredible holiness, incredible integrity, and so we're just happy to have this whole show that we created. That's beautiful. It's a very, very moving story.
That's available for people to view online, isn't it? Or
well,
by DVD?
That one there is just you can see the trailer, you can see information on it, the website and whatnot, but we haven't filmed it. It's been, in fact, it's been coming. It's gone all over the whole country, to all the major cities, and a lot of the cities that are having a lot of troubles right now with the riots and the looting and all these other things. But it's also been to Connecticut. In fact, there is a whole tour was planned for Father Tolton to come to Connecticut, but because of the virus the pandemic or the COVID or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's that got all canceled for now until we can until Connecticut opens, the East Coast opens up.
Well, we're actually doing better than the South, so hopefully we will have you here soon. How long does it take you to put together something like that whole production? That's got to be a while.
It is like the ones you've mentioned, one on St. John Vianney, the patron saint of priests, of diocesan priests, parish priests, or the one you just mentioned, Father Tolton. They can take a long time. They can take, because in our case, you're already, you're doing other shows, you're doing other projects, you're running the nonprofit, but at the same time, you've got to carve out time to create a new original work that has never existed in some cases in art history. So there's not too many plays on John Vianney, or there's never been a play on Father Tolton in this regard. So in taking the Father Tolton one, I had to do a lot of, what you do is do research. So it can take as much as a year to do the research, because you have to read everything, all the historical facts, not just about what they did, but what the whole thing, what happened in his case during the Civil War, pre-Civil War, post-Civil War, into the history of the United States. So, and so you kind of have to get a feel for that. And then when you put the show together, you have to write the script. So you have to take a whole person's life, a long history, and then you have to bring it into realm, as you saw with St. John Vianney. He lived 73 years. I got to put it all together in an hour and a half.
Right.
So then you add all the other elements. What's the theme? What's the characters you're going to have involved? Because you can't have everybody that you ever met. So then you, once you decide all that, now we have to write music for the whole thing, and you have to get a composer, and you have to come up with the conceptual ideas and musical instrumentation and orchestra and all the things we're going to use. So, and what is set, so it's a very complex project.
Are you a musician as well? Do you do any of the music?
No, I mean, I have done little things. I'm not by any means trained. I probably, in putting a play together, one of the most gratifying things is to work with the composer. I just admire composers so much who create beautiful music, and you give them an idea and a concept and with a movement and an emotion, and they're able to create, as you saw in that clip on Father Tolton, where we took some of the famous Negro spirituals and brought them into orchestral music. And
that was beautiful.
Oh, it's just so powerful, and it's so American. It has an American feel. Whereas John Vianney, which is the other one that you had an eyewitness, is totally different music.
Sure.
In terms of that. So it's and then you got to come up with costumes, and then the greatest challenge is rehearsing the actor, directing him, and be it me or be it the other. I played a lot of other characters. I played a lot of good guys, bad guys, but the main actor has to take the load. So, a one-person show for acting is probably one of the biggest responsibilities an actor can have in live drama.
One of the things that what I remember a lot of was in Vianney was the costume changes. How many costumes do you have on at one time?
Well, in that particular show, it's one of those things that bedazzles the audience to a certain degree, that I go out, say what we call stage left or stage right. I go around one of the set pieces and I come out looking completely different or wearing something else. And I do that on purpose. So the craft of acting and movement also has to know how to dress in the dark and where to touch and what to look like. So in a sense, I'm kind of like a blind man. A blind person can really know their space. And so I have to memorize my space so I don't grab the wrong thing, because that can happen. Anybody can make a mistake. So, and it takes a lot of practice. and perfection in that way. And but what happens is, boom, all of a sudden you appear and you have something completely different on. And that kind of, and it's set for, he's giving a sermon, he looks a little different, he's talking to the villagers. And that'll happen in Tolton too. He'll start out as a slave, he's barefoot, torn shirt, pants ragged, and then all the way till he goes to be, he's in a glorious priestly outfit, all in gold. And he looks magnificent as a priest would look, and so you see the transitions, and it evokes the emotions for the audience as it would in any play.
My next question is about moving towards your film career, but I just want to say that you're right. You're spot on when you say that the costume changes and the lighting and everything, it really does create this intimacy between the audience and you. I don't know if you feel the same way back.
Oh, absolutely. I think the one thing about a one-person show, David, is that it's more, in a way, it's a much more intimate art form than, say, a cast play, because in the cast play, you're interacting with the actors on stage, and sometimes you do an aside or you share your feelings with the audience. But in a one-person show, you're picking out that person in what we call stage right or stage left, in the back row, in the front row, and you look them right in the eye. And there's an intimacy that you cannot recreate ever in film or in other art forms, obviously in painting or sculpture or architecture. It's a live experience, and it has that personal intimacy interaction that for an actor is also, it could be very disarming, particularly when you're performing, for small groups. You have to be extremely stripped of a lot of things because you can't be phony. It forces the actor to not be artificial. Why? Because you have, as an actor, one person has to hold the audience's attention for an hour and a half. You have nobody else. So it's a difficult challenge.
What makes a good actor? Because I think I'm thinking right now what you're saying about being honest, and it's like anytime somebody goes and gives like a witness talk, it's whenever they're honest and making themselves vulnerable to their audience.
Right. And I think that's the key thing. You have to, for an actor, for me, I play all kinds of roles. You probably saw me play a lot of roles in that particular, and the easiest role, even though it's very dramatic, evil is much more easy to portray than it is holiness or goodness. So there's a real, there's a focus that way. And I think because it has to be believable, and we see that in movies so much, the evil characters, but to be really good, to have that innocence, and a lot of actors are good at that, obviously. But what I'm saying is that's the thing that will take the show and lift it. One of my sayings is that a lot of plays, you want to entertain people, right? You want to keep your attention. You want to say, wow, you're going to costume changes, the music, oh my gosh, he's changing character. That's called entertainment. The next step is inspiration, right? So it inspires people. And so not all art inspires. And then the third leg would be what we call evangelization. Evangelization, to make it simple, it's just to make God seen and heard. So that means it's a higher realm. So how can you touch God? How can you touch heaven, or at least a glimpse of it? And that's what our shows, meaning when you do the gospel or you do the saints, it's a little different than doing, Private Ryan or Jurassic Park or whatever show it is, Oklahoma on stage, or Guys and Dolls. It kind of goes in, it's a deeper spiritual art form. That's all. Doesn't mean, it's more talented than another, but it's just, it's like religious art, and profane art. You got an image of, if I painted David, God created you, right? But if I have the Madonna, the mother and the child, well, that evokes something different. It's not just mother and child. It's the mother of God and God. And so, it transcends, it touches, so to speak, up to the skies in a sense.
Mm-hmm. When you made Therese,
Right.
you played.
You mean the movie itself?
Yeah, a future saint. You played her father.
Right. I played Louis Martin.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't know who the young lady was that played Therese, but she was fantastic in it. But I could almost sense there was like a father-daughter connection, a real father-daughter connection between you. I mean, it was well done.
Thank you.
So how do you do something like that when she's not really your daughter?
Well, I think any good actor, I mean, you have to embrace that moment, and you, in the case of when you're dealing with these people and the saints, in that case, and that would be true for any great story. You have to show you have to get into that, not just the mind of the character, in this case, a father of one of the most famous saints that ever lived, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, the Little Flower, but you also have to get into his heart. You got to get into his spirit. And so when she's leaving the scene, you have to let her go into the monastery, and there's just the tears of a father, mm-hmm. which are many, because when he's a widower, he's lost his wife, he's losing his baby daughter, in a sense his favorite child, as it would be most for all fathers when they have a youngest child. To see them go, especially a daughter, I think it's just a moment of real vulnerability, and you have to show their humanity, and at the same time their courage, and their surrender. I guess that's one of the beautiful lines. You want to surrender. The famous line from the Office of Readings. It's surrender to God, and He will do everything for you. And so there's a sense that's a challenge for any actor. How do you surrender to that character and let him be a channel? Like, for example, Father Tolton, the famous black priest, our actor Jim Coleman, he asks, as I would the others, or John Vianney for that matter, John Vianney, Father Tolton, you take over and you speak through me. I am an instrument. I am just your instrument. Mm-hmm. So when you call upon the saints, or in the case of me, where I've had to play Jesus Christ himself in terms of the Gospels, you're asking God to flow through you, so that mm-hmm. people can, for a moment, maybe an hour and a half, actually experience God himself in the flesh, or the saint in the flesh.
So it's the ultimate communion of saints.
It really is. And I think, that's what's so beautiful about it, is that you're right. We are a family. We're a unity. It's never about uniformity, as you can see with the different saints you see, but it's about unity and that communion of saints, so that when we go to church or we're right now talking, there is a communion of saints. There's the angels. There's a communion of souls. Mm-hmm. God is never alone.
No, he is not. He's got a lot of friends.
He does. Well, he needs a few more.
unless of course you talk to Saint Teresa of Avila, because then she didn't think that he had so many friends.
That's right. He had that famous line, right?
Yeah. What do you find more rewarding, more enjoyable? Do you find the film, or do you find the live stage to be more fulfilling?
Well, currently I'm working on our play on Saint Faustina, Messenger of Divine Mercy, which we call now Heart of Mercy, and a big challenge for me, and I've kind of really loving doing it, because we're having to create her visions. No one's ever really done that before. She had visions of God, and this is pretty typical of a lot of different saints, as you mentioned, Teresa of Avila, where you have a vision of heaven or you have a vision of hell. And so we have to create, what did she see? She told us what she saw. So all we're doing is being obedient to what she said. So I find that fascinating. It's really challenging. In terms of I think, the art form of film, it's more of it's really a director's and a editor's more showcase than it is the actors. Actors are very important, of course, because but we can manipulate everything a lot of times in film, in terms of how we view you, or not show you at all, or cut you up, or put you in. You could do a lot of editing, right? Whereas in the art form of acting, live drama, live theater, it is the actor's responsibility more. Once the director's done it, he's kind of out of the way, and the composer and all that other stuff, you have to hold the audience. Whereas the film, there's other things you can add to it to try to make it dazzle, so to speak.
Right.
With the sun and all this stuff, whereas theater is much more stripped down. It's more human. So I enjoy the contact with the audience, but I love also, I think filmmaking is a beautiful art form. It can do so much good, or it can do so much damage. And as we see, you see that with pornography or any of the other things that are more, overboard and addictive and or more destructive, wounded, But the things that we're trying to do is, well, I love it because also it's a challenge, because a lot of it's unexplored territory. Most filmmakers just never go there. They never go into the realm of kind of like what we call, maybe what Jesus calls the kingdom of heaven. What is that like? What are the saints like? And to go into their lives, into their hearts. We sometimes just leave them as a form of a statue, and that's it, as you started this whole program.
Leonardo, I completely agree with you. When I sit and I look at movies just being remade, Hollywood does not have any new ideas, and they should explore the lives of the saints, some good, wholesome stories. I think that's what people really want.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And one of the dilemmas to Hollywood, or the bigger, they got so much going on. They're trying to keep the whatever, I don't know, you could do Jurassic Park 8 or something, whatever, just keeps going. But that's why independent filmmakers, they're always looking at them, because they bring what we call fresh ideas, new ideas, unexplored territory. And then they can hook into that and either buy it or take it or utilize it or copy it, and I think that's what art needs to be constantly reinvented in a way, to be refreshed. And any film studio or theater, they know that, you're just regurgitating sometimes, and it's you've got to come up with something new or break it up a little bit.
Right.
That's the nice thing about Shakespeare. He wrote so much, and if you do the entire canon, you get all 36 plays. So you can mix it up a little bit every year.
There's almost that many Fast and Furiouses.
Exactly. Think of that. And people they get attached to it like they do going to McDonald's or something. It's familiar. It's they saw one, they were thrilled, they were excited, so they want to see another. And I think obviously that's the human nature. We love adventure and that kind of action movies, they call them. And then there's the other type of movies, and the saints, I think there's lots of potential. It's just, again, unexplored, David. There's, like, you saw Vianney. I mean, that has a lot of action in it.
Yes, it does.
And a lot of it could be scarier than the movie Exorcist. And at the same time, it could be very uplifting, much more than Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist itself. Yep. So it kind of puts evil in its place, or evil in its perspective. Because evil is very important to holiness, because you've got to have evil to have good, or good to have evil. You've got to see the contrast.
I've often said, you don't see the light. There's a song, and I'm drawing a blank on it. Sometimes you need the dark to see the light.
Exactly. And sometimes you can see the light in the darkness. Yes, and there's no light that anyone else sees.
The song is
So,
by Disturbed.
and you're absolutely right. And I think that's what gives hope to people. You know, when we say there's light at the end of the tunnel, you know, we're going to get out of this virus, you know, we'll, you know, life will continue. You know, this isn't the end times, you know,
Right.
that kind of stuff. I mean, people are scared. They get always, you know, I mean, the world has been through many, many things. And each person's life has. So that's why it's related to, you know, each tragedy or suffering or, you know, a concrete wall that you come through. How am I going to get through that concrete wall? Well, somehow, you know, it works out that sometimes God gets you through.
Yes, he does.
The Red Sea does part, and you get to walk through.
Yep. What are you doing through this whole COVID? What
Well,
are you doing? How are you
COVID,
staying?
what's happened is our live dramas have been kind of, as I mentioned with the Connecticut tour, many of the tours have been canceled or postponed or delayed. And, you know, people right now, as we're talking, you know, they're trying to set up something for October or November or December. And now, you know, that gets still, they're not sure. Should we do it? What's going to happen? Nobody knows anything. And you have to almost look at what part of this United States is, you know, maybe they're more solid or they're not as afraid or whatever, or there's less sickness or whatever. So you have to look at that. But we're kind of planning into the 2021, obviously, because we have to have some hope that we're all going to come together as a human family eventually. But we're working on a lot about, actually, we're working on a lot of electronic stuff, meaning we're working on the film on Heart of Mercy, which is about divine mercy, and which is a very powerful, moving story, which I hope you get to see.
Yes, I'd love to.
And we're now thinking of live streaming our shows like Father Tolton, Saint Vianney, to actually show that. You know, you could watch on television or on cable, the streaming thing where you could actually see it, you know, for a limited time maybe. So we're working on that. I'm actually been asked to maybe work on a documentary. We're trying to figure out what subject matter, but because I've done a couple of documentaries in the past, and that's something that interests me. So there's a lot of things we're working on. Things for radio we're doing. You know, we've done many things, be it the rosaries. We have we have a very popular thing called Benedictus. It's about reflections from, you know, our former Pope Benedict the 16th. So we've done a lot of stuff for radio, but I think that there's lots to do still for film. We're trying to inspire more people that way. So that's where we're at. So try to keep us going, because we're a nonprofit organization like anything, and we can't keep going without donations and people's, you know, the money that people send us, or the resources that they buy us, the camera or some other equipment, that assists us to create the shows that you mentioned during this interview. Yep. It's all done by the sacrifice of others, and then we can take that show and then we can bring it to churches. We can bring it, you know, to schools like you saw it at. We can go to inner city poor places. We can go to prisons. We can go to monasteries. We go to professional theaters. What's exciting is that you can go to so many variety of types of people, different ethnic groups. You're with all Koreans, or you're with an entire African American church, or you're with just Vietnamese, or, you know, all Hispanic. So that's what I love about doing this work, because you see, when you do the subject matter of a saint, that saint is not just for just one group. No. It's for all of us, like Maximillian Kolbe, or in that case, or some of these famous St. John of the Cross, or St. Francis of Assisi.
Yep, I wanted to see Maximillian Kolbe.
It's a powerful show.
Before the whole COVID situation, I used to serve Mass at a Felician Sisters convent.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
One of Maximillian Kolbe's students was a friar there, and he actually blessed a few objects for me. So I mean, what a holy man. I mean, he was.
Oh, his story, you know, and his mother, you know, she became a Felician nun. So there's a long history there. But yeah, you know, what's so interesting, St. Maximilian Kolbe it's very relevant to what's happening today, even though, he died in 1941 in Auschwitz in the concentration camp. Here he is, here's a man who's not afraid to go against communism and Nazism, fascism, and socialism. And the same thing happened to John Vianney. He's coming right during the French Revolution, as you saw in the beginning of the story, and the church has been basically decimated and destroyed in so many ways, and so he has to rebuild it. And we're seeing the same things happening now. We say Father Tolton is about the racial issues. We got black and white and injustice and racial lack of racial harmony and unity. But then you got the other part where there's a movement in America now there's an attraction towards the French Revolution, socialism, which is the mother of communism and fascism. So think movements that are they'll take away the free rights of people, as we're seeing in China and other places in the world, and happening seeds here in America. So that's why these saints are, wow, they've done it, they've seen it, they've addressed it, and they've given, in fact, many of them, as you saw with Maximilian, they've given their life for it. They've been executed because of their faith.
Well, St. John Paul, a fellow thespian, saw how important theater and acting can be in educating the population. So I applaud you for what you're doing, even in these tough times of this COVID virus and everything. I think what you're doing is wonderful. I think that your message is timeless, like you said about the Gospel of St. Luke. So keep going, brother.
Oh, I'm trying. Got to keep going. I got to pass it on. I want to pass it on to say a prayer, David, that we can find future actors and producers and people with vision, creators and directors, etc., that can take this on, because the harvest is rich, but the laborers are few.
What are you doing for mentorship? Are you mentoring young actors and people just doing sound, or are you helping?
Yes, we do. What's exciting is we have a full-time editor of film. He's also, we're having people on staff learn all about sound design, editing. We're doing things in studio and in the editing rooms, suites, and so that's been exciting. They're learning that, so that's a whole thing that we can keep passing on. Graphic design, also doing that, but the main thing is with actors, it's a matter of, there's a number of actors that are getting more attracted to doing this. So it takes a lot of time to train them, to design shows for them, and to get their commitment, because this kind of work is, you got to have a higher level of commitment. It's hard work. And so, but they're out there slowly. We just have to expand our outreach, and your program and others can help get people to know that we even exist, because there's not too many, live drama companies like ourselves, and also, doing some film on the side too. So we're definitely want to expand this out, and we want to be able to teach people and pass this on. In some ways, we're kind of like a school in some ways, because people over 40 years have come, and some of them gone on to other fields in the media and communications, be it EWTN, or someone gone to Hollywood, or they're all trying to do good things, and then others they've gotten married. They meet at our company, and they get married, and they have children, and so that's also a great joy to see all that happen also.
Well, here's a story for you about how influential St. Luke Productions is. I went with my best friend to see Vianney. He has now just been ordained as a transitional deacon. So I saw you when he was just ready to enter into seminary. He is now a transitional deacon, and we saw you.
So he'll be ordained pretty soon then?
Next year. Yep.
Wow, perfect.
So
yeah, I think, of all the shows, there's been many things have happened to all the shows, but that particular show, John Vianney, has inspired a lot of young men to go into the priesthood, or a seminarian will see it ready to quit. He doesn't know if he can make it. He sees John Vianney and he says, well, if that guy could make it, I'll try to make it.
There you go.
Since he was so dumb as a seminarian. So he persevered. So it's exciting for us to see people, be inspired in a deep way to want to enter into these different things. Or they'll see a show and decide to name their baby after John Vianney or Tolton. We're getting now more babies being called Tolton. It's amazing.
Didn't you run into somebody named Vianney?
I have, believe it or not. In the case of John Vianney, I performed for one of his relatives from his brother's side, which would be a Francis Vianney, and so it would be how many generations that would be? I don't know. It'd be a great nephew, and so that was exciting to actually meet a Vianney. And then another time, I performed for both sides of Saint Teresa's side.
Oh, wow.
you got Louis Martin, and you have Zélie Guérin, I think I can't remember the pronunciation of the French, but both, Saint Teresa's mother's side and the father, and they were distant relatives, and they came to see the show, the live show and the film. So that was exciting, and Maximillian Kolbe. What's really was moving is I actually performed, this is years ago, but I actually performed for the prisoners that were with him in the concentration camp in Auschwitz who survived.
Wow.
So they survived after 4 years in Auschwitz after he died, and they were able to come see the show. And I performed for his secretary, who he was right there when the Gestapo took him. So, or a seminarian in Rome when he was there. And, so like, wow, you go, that was real, And of course, I performed for many concentration camp survivors in all the different wars, so World War II and Korea and Vietnam and all the different wars, So it's, all the different communist gulags, etc. So you when you're doing that and you're performing, you're going, this is real, this is not just like Shakespeare in the past, so to speak.
Right. I want to ask you a personal question. Do you wrestle with the devil?
Yes, I think I do. I mean, well, I have to portray him so often, so hopefully I'm doing him justice. I want to, as they say, scare the hell out of you. Yes. But that's the good part. You don't want to go to hell. But I think I do. I mean, I think the devil is constantly toying with me. As Maximilian would say, the devil's always putting his tail into everything. And so I think he's always trying to stop us. He's trying to stop me. He, make something break, or we can't get the show done, or he'll try to stop the shows. He'll actually do something, that's kind of eerie. But at the same time, he'll pull all the electricity will stop, or something of that nature. But also, in a personal way, like you asked, I think he tries to discourage you. He tries to confuse you, confuse me. To not get focused, to distract you constantly, or the other temptation, I think, is you start to take what you do is, that you take it too seriously, meaning you start to think that I'm the one that's accomplishing all the good work, when in fact it's only God who accomplishes anything. So I think, you got the both sides, the pride and this, but I remember when I was doing Vianney, since you love Vianney, I had just written it, right? And I was in my studio, and I had to read it out loud. And I just wanted to see, what was it like? And I have to play all the characters and all that, like you would in a reading. But it was pitch dark, and there was a light over my head. Oh, like those movies where you have the detective with the guy with the light over his head type of thing. So I'm in there. It's kind of spooky, actually, but I wasn't thinking about that. And then, as I do the show, it opens with the devil and all that kind of stuff. I felt the presence of the devil in the very room I was working in. And so I could feel his presence. It kind of almost made my hairs on my head tingle, and there was kind of fear in me and all that kind of stuff. But, I just said, no, we're going to read this play. And as you know, John Vianney doesn't give up, and the devil gets pretty scared of him. So they have a battle, of course. But so it was a battle that night, but I persevered and went right through it. And that gave me since then, that gave me insight, that the devil's real. He's present. He's in your room and he's in my room right now. And he's listening to us and watching us and trying to distract us right now. So I think it's made, I think it's really important for all of us to become aware of the devil, to become his presence. John Vianney is the one that says that, when you're saying mass, he's right there. When you're in the confessional, the priest, he's right there. It's not like he's a foreign, he's away, he'll say, Satan, be gone, in the name of Jesus, be gone. Well, that'll get rid of him, but you have to be aware that he's there.
Yeah. Somebody once told me that they don't believe in the devil, but they know he's real because Jesus Christ told them he was.
Right, exactly. And I think, Jesus is the barometer of everything, right? He met the devil, he talked to him, so he's real.
Yep.
Because, and I think that's something we don't reflect upon very often. And so that's why it's, he's the, as Jesus says, he's in the Gospel of John so much, he's the prince of this world, he's the father of lies, So I think that we have to, and you're seeing that lived out now. You're seeing it happen right now where people are into a world of lies, where they don't speak the truth and they slander others and just try to destroy others. And this is not a work of God. This is a work of the devil.
Exactly.
It's a work of evil. And one just has to recognize the key to our faith or even understanding evil is recognition. The two disciples on the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize Jesus, but suddenly they recognized him when he broke the bread, when he brought him in. And that's what we're all trying. That's one of the things of life, is we have to learn to recognize God in the moment. Emmanuel, God is with us always has been, always will.
Amen.
So amen.
Leonardo, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Sure.
Do you ever get afraid before you go up on a stage? Do you ever get stage fright?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This kind of work, you never take it for granted. You can't get cocky. You say, oh, I've got it. Because when you do, you might miss something. And I think, you got to have confidence that God will get you through, but you have to still make sure you practice your lines. And you think about it with sports, you have to work hard. You think of somebody like, I don't know, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like a Michael Jordan, when he played basketball, he probably would practice more than the other players, even though he was the best player. But he knew when he went up in a big game that he's going to have to deliver. So, and if you have a defeat the night before, you got to rise up and not let that bother you. You got to stay focused. And that's what acting really is. You might start off a little afraid, and I've had that. You get a little shaky, get in front of all those people. When you walk out and there's 1,000 people there, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, there's 1,000 people here. And I didn't know anybody was going to be here. So you get distracted sometimes by those things, or overwhelmed. So I think I do get still afraid, and it's an honest fear, which is it's a healthy thing. I think, you don't want to let it take over your life, though.
Right.
So,
no, the reason I asked that is because each time I do one of these podcasts, I get the butterflies in my stomach. I mean, so there's that performance anxiety for me, I guess.
Oh, and I think that's a natural thing, and actually it's a good thing because it kind of keeps you on your toes, and also you can use that weakness or that fear for, sometimes it can transform into greater focus or honesty or inspiration. You know what I mean? And you do that in sports a lot too.
Sure. Sure.
Or in all the performing arts, be it music or anything. If you start out, as long as you end the play well, or end the song well, or end the radio program well, that they may forget some of the mistakes you made in the beginning.
Well, how can people help you out by making donations? Where can they go? Are there things you need? Are there things you're looking for right now?
Well, I think first of all, they should go to our website, Saint Luke Productions, stlukeproductions.com. Go there. You can go. You can donate to our ministry. You can call us. You can write us. We have all the information there. Yes, we're definitely in need of. The only way we exist is through donations, and that's how we're able to create, like the movie we're creating on. If you love Divine Mercy and want to see that becoming a very beautiful story, yes, we could need your help. If you want to see the Father Tolton filmed, or St. John Vianney that we've talked about filmed, we need your support. We need, we need equipment too. We need a new camera. We need things like that to be able to do what we need to do. And also we need funds to help the poor. For example, we donate shows sometimes to inner city schools or to prisons, or they can't pay for these things, but we need to still be able to pay for them. We have to pay the actors and the staff and everybody, so that allows that to happen. So those who help us in any way with a donation are going to touch souls, just like how were you able to see John Vianney? It was because of the generosity of one priest to bring it there. And in that case, Father Ed Nadolny, who is, your billboard priest. He's done a lot of stuff. He's not a young spring chicken. But,
no, he's not.
He's not afraid to bring the saints to the people. And his desire is to bring especially to the young. Because the young students are not ever really exposed to the saints. And so that's why he does it. So I hope we can do that again. But that's the spirit of why people donate to us. They have to trust us. They have to believe in us. And we take our donorship very seriously, meaning because we offer anyone who sends anything, we pray for their concerns, because we realize the sacrifice they're making, because they're making it for the gospel and the saints. And that's why, and the saints will never be known unless people make sacrifices.
Wow, excellent. I just want to thank you for coming and speaking with me today.
Oh, absolutely.
It has been such a pleasure. I know if people want to go and find out more, go to stlukeproductions.com. And you can see about bringing Leonardo to your parish, your church, and not even, you'll go to Protestant churches, right?
Yeah. We're for everyone.
Okay.
God has one family, so I think that I encourage you, to contact us. Particularly, let's try to fill up 2021. Let's go. Let's get back on the East Coast. Let's get all over this country, and because every person, every community is important.
Thank you so much, Leonardo. I just want to send you away with an Irish blessing. It goes like this. It goes, may your troubles be less, your blessings be more, and nothing but happiness come through your door.
Beautiful.
Leonardo Defilippis, thank you so much. Thank you, friends. I'm your host, Down the Hall Dave, and hopefully next time my producer, Dave Imhoff, will be with me. It's not been good for me to be pushing all the buttons behind the scenes tonight. So, see you next time.